In this video, we are going to make a classic cocktail, the Manhattan. Welcome to Thirsty Thursday. I'm Mark. This is the Average Meat Channel. And in today's video, we are going to make a classic cocktail that goes back well over 100 years, the Manhattan. Now, if you didn't catch my previous videos, I found this really cool glass. Now, this looks like it may be part of a Boston shaker set. I don't know, but it clearly is vintage 1950s or 1960s. And along the outside of the glass are a number of classic cocktails. And we've already made, in our last episode, the whiskey sour. So today we're going to make a Manhattan. Now there's a lot of different stories as to the origin of the Manhattan. One claims in New York City at a bar called the Manhattan Club, there was a party hosted by Lady Randolph Churchill, who was the mother of Winston Churchill. And at that party, which was celebrating presidential candidate Samuel Tilden, they served the cocktail. And moving forward, when people would ask for that drink that supposedly was invented that evening, they just asked for it by the name of the club, the Manhattan Club. So they asked for a Manhattan. Well, it's very likely that that was a fictionalized account because historians have shown that Lady Churchill was not in Manhattan at that time. It said she was in France and she was pregnant. So she probably wasn't tossing back cocktails. Whatever the origin, we know it goes back to sometime in the 1860s, but it became really popular in the 1950s and 1960s. And it's one of the classic cocktails. So it is so simple and straightforward. And I'm following this recipe. There are others. We're following the recipe on this shaker because that's part of this series. So what are we going to be using? We are going to be using whiskey. I'm going to be using Crown Royal. We're going to be using vermouth. And we're going to be using bitters. And that's all there is to it. Now, I should point out that you can buy, just a classic straight Martini and Rossi vermouth. Then they also have sweet vermouths and dry vermouths. They each will have a different type of cocktail. This simply says vermouth. So we're going with a standard vermouth. Now, let's talk about the way this cocktail can be mixed, because there are a couple of ways we can mix it. I am going to stir the cocktail and then I'm going to strain it into a coupe glass. That tends to be the classic presentation. However, it's also accepted to serve this on the rocks in a lowball glass like we see here. So today, just because I think it's a little more fun, a little more classy, we are going to serve this in the coupe glass. So let's get started. Now this uses a surprising amount of vermouth. It uses an entire ounce of vermouth. Okay, so there's our 1 ounce of vermouth. And the ratio is really simple. It's 2-to-1 whiskey to vermouth. So we are going to add 2 ounces of whiskey. And I haven't tried it yet, but I wonder if I was using my jigger, if you could just use the larger portion, the smaller portion, if that would be a reasonable ratio. And then we're going to use 2 dashes of bitters. Now, we haven't talked about this much, but because of the design of a bitters bottle, a dash is simply 1, and then 2 is another dash. So you turn it upside down and hit it once, twice, and that is our 2 dashes. And in my case, a little bit got on my finger. So I missed the glass completely. You'd think as much as I use bitters, that would not be a problem. And then we're just going to shake it. And typically, when you're using a clear cocktail, you want to stir. Did I say shake? You want to stir the cocktail. And if we're using things that have, a lot of cloudiness to it, things like, citrus fruit or something, you might consider shaking that. So you want to stir this until it gets nice and chilled. And then we're going to take our strainer. Do you remember what this is called? It's called a Hawthorne strainer. And we're going to strain out the ice. So now that cocktail is going to be nice and chilled. And we're going to garnish it with a cherry, which is the classic standard garnish. So there you go. There is our Manhattan. I'm going to pause for just a moment to get a picture for our thumbnail, and then we'll give it the taste test. And we're back. Now, I'm going to guess that this is a cocktail that's not going to appeal to me. I really shouldn't make assumptions, because that's why we do this. That's why we have, fun on this channel every Thursday. But I typically like things that have a sweeter flavor. But we'll find out. I like tropical cocktails, things that have juices and sodas and stuff in it. But let's give it a try. Yeah, it does have a far more stronger taste, a bit of a bitter taste. I don't really know how to describe it. It's the first time I've ever had a Manhattan. So it doesn't appeal to me. It's not that it's a bad drink. You really would have a hard time mixing this poorly because it only has 3 classic ingredients. You have whiskey, you have vermouth, and you have bitters. So it's not a matter of mixing the drink poorly. It's not a matter of having inferior ingredients. This is not top shelf whiskey, but a pretty good brand when you're talking about Crown Royal. And Martini and Rossi is the classic vermouth. So, we're really not, it's not about ingredients, and it's not about the mix, and it's not about the way we prepared it. You can see that it is chilled. Maybe you can't see, but we're getting a lot of condensation on the glass, which tells me, and it tastes cold, of course, but that tells us that the cocktail is properly chilled through the way that we mixed it. It's just a matter of preference, personal taste. It's not bad. It just wouldn't be my preference. But it's a classic for a reason. A lot of people like the Manhattan. You might be one of them. And if you don't know, well, give it a try and find out. Very simple to make. As always, I want to thank you for joining me. We are going to continue this series. I think we have 5 more cocktails off of this shaker glass. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we've got 5 more to go. So a lot of classic cocktails coming your way on Thirsty Thursday. As always, I encourage you to like and share the videos. Leave your comments down below. If you haven't already, please subscribe by clicking my face in the corner, and don't forget to ring that bell icon. That way you'll know when I post new videos. Thanks again, I'm Mark, and this is the Average Me Channel.